Well, finally, we come to the subject of anxiety. And maybe people were hoping that I'd spend the whole week talking about anxiety. I guess a typical psychologist could do that. They could spend a lot on anxiety. The reason why I don't is because that grants it more power, authority, and respect than I think it's worth. And I really mean that. And this is, again, as I said in the first episode, where people get very defensive. They don't want to hear people like me say something like that. Because they're going to say, well, CJ, you don't understand anxiety. You don't understand depression. Well, no, I do. I do understand what they are. I have experienced versions of these things. I know what it means to be overwhelmed by emotion, overwhelmed by a mind you can't control. I know what it's like. So people who deal with anxiety on a regular basis are always looking for solutions. They sincerely want to be set free of these things. They sincerely want to become, productive and not have to contend with negative emotions, stopping that productivity all the time, taking them out of the fight, so to speak. But they don't have any long-term solution for it. And what I offer is not short-term. I'm not going to say, as I said, just metal up and get over it. I know you can't. I know that's the case. I know you can't metal up and get over depression. I know you can't metal up and just pop out of anxiety. People have anxiety panic attacks. Well, what's your long-term solution going to be? Because that's what you're going to have to do. And, people say, well, you can't just mentally do anything about it because it's more chemical. And so chemical meaning they feel like they need to get on medication to deal with it. Now, I'm not saying don't take medication. I would say be careful about taking medication. And a good doctor doesn't want you living on medication either. A good doctor is not going to want you, medicated all the time. They're going to want you might use it for a particular season. And I understand that. Sometimes things can get just so bad that you need to just stabilize things. It's like when somebody comes into the emergency room in a hospital. Well, what is the emergency room for? The emergency room is for when somebody comes in, they can stabilize, they can assess where someone is, stabilize their condition, and see if they need anything further. So when you have someone that comes out of a car wreck or something, they don't just go right into surgery because the person would die. So the first thing they got to do is get them in the emergency room and do what? Stabilize their vital signs, breathing, heart rate, the bleeding, stop the bleeding. Because if they don't do that, that person's body can't handle the additional trauma of surgery after the trauma of a car accident. So a person has to be stable enough to be able to go into further surgery. So that's what I would recommend for somebody dealing with depression or anxiety. Look at it like that. Look at it like a car wreck. You've got to first stabilize yourself. And so if you're really, really bad, yeah, man, maybe you need some sort of a doctor-controlled, structured medication to help you just kind of stabilize things. But I wouldn't leave it there. I would go beyond that. I'm hard-pressed to find someone who is very serious about their personal development, the exercise, the developing of their mind and emotions, and who practices very good nutrition and trains vigorously. I don't find anybody like that who deals with anxiety or severe depression. It's rare. I haven't met that one. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I'm just saying it's rare. If I find somebody who deals a lot with anxiety, if I find somebody who deals a lot with depression, let me spend a week with them, and I'm going to find how they are keeping themselves where they are. They are not practicing any long-term solution for where they are. So again, you might need some medication to get you stable if your situation is very severe. But medication is not a long-term solution. You need a long-term solution. And the first one I would recommend is going to be nutrition. You want to say that the problem with anxiety is chemical or physiological, that the problem with depression is physiological or chemical? Fine. There is no physiology. Nothing will affect your physiology. Nothing will affect your chemicals more than the shit you put in your mouth. I can guarantee you that. Nothing will affect you more than your nutrition. What are you eating, for God's sake? You think those Snickers bars aren't hurting you? You think all that pizza is not hurting you? You think those soft drinks aren't hurting you? You think that sweet tea isn't hurting you? You think that sweet tooth isn't hurting you? You think that lust for bread isn't hurting you? You think your distaste for broccoli isn't hurting you? Nutrition is key. And, think about it. I mean, we are dealing with epidemic levels of diabetes, heart disease, stress, heart attacks, obesity. I mean, it's at epidemic levels, even in our kids. Over 50% of kids being affected by obesity and these things. That's traumatic. That's terrible. How does such a highly industrialized, at the peak of technology, modern civilization still deal with this stupid crap? Because when you clear the clutter and you clear all the technology, what you're going to get down to is people are people, man. People are people who are driven by the lust of their flesh. And that's why people are still getting fat, heart disease, because they can't control what they eat. That's why these same people are hooked on pornography or whatever. Why? Because they can't control the desires of their flesh. They can't control these things. So that's, again, when it gets back to personal development, building a stronger you, and then understanding what you need to do to bring changes in your life. So the first thing I would recommend, again, get your nutritional house in order. Enough is enough. Don't make any more stupid excuses. Get your eating under control, for God's sake. It's your life we're talking about. You're willing to give it up for a freaking Twinkie? Get control of your eating. I shouldn't have to tell you this. Get control of your eating. Learn about nutrition. Learn about it. The second thing I would recommend is high intensity training. Yep, you need to work out. You need to work up a sweat. Whatever you got to do, man. You want to get a trainer, learn how to do it right, that's fine. Get in there, lift some heavy stuff. Don't hurt yourself. Okay, again, learn how to do things right, but start to exercise. Do some cardio type activity, whatever it is that suits your body. But you get your nutrition in order. Those carbs and those sugars are killing you, man. They're killing you. And it's feeding the depression. It's feeding the anxiety. As you heard me say before, I'm on the ketogenic diet. So for me, I love living on a higher fat diet because fat is what produces ketones, which the body loves to live on. And it produces a more stableness, a greater sense of well-being, and it's all food. I'm not even trying to control my mind. It's just the food that I eat and the food that I don't eat. I sleep better because of it. When that ketosis kicks in, man, I start to sleep better. I think better. I'm more creative. I'm more innovative. I'm more energetic. All of these things just by diet. Add to that some more intense training. In other words, I'm not just saying go walk down the street, okay? Forget that, man. You need to lift some weights or do something. Do something that requires more out of you, that elevates your heart rate. Don't hurt yourself, but you should get busy doing something. And then personal development. You need to start exercising your mind. And this is where it gets to things like reading, learning. You need to don't watch documentaries. I'm not opposed to documentaries. I love documentaries. I'm just saying don't let your learning be fed to you that way. You need something that challenges your mind, not puts you in a passive position just observing something. Read challenging books. Turn off some of the things that you get the negative input from and start developing yourself. And you're going to notice over time that things don't affect you like they used to, even if it's physiological, even if it's chemical. You're going to find those things begin to weaken. And the more that they weaken, the greater will be your sense of control. You're not going to need the meds. You're not going to need the meds. And when those things do try to hit, you're going to be so much stronger. It may knock you down for a bit, but you're going to get up so much faster. And you're going to have a better, and you're going to start figuring out your own body. You're going to start figuring out your own emotions, your own mind, your own physiology. You're going to know what foods you respond to, and you're going to become more empowered. Don't just run to the doctor and start taking medication. Okay, you can get free of a lot of this stuff. You can at least get it under control if you have some plan to do so. Again, I haven't met the person who's chronically stressed or suffers from anxiety or depression, who doesn't have who's not training hard, who does not watch their nutrition closely. They think they are maybe, but I can still find they're eating. They're still overdoing it on carbs. They just don't understand. They're not aware of these things. So again, if your situation is in crisis, you may need something to kind of stabilize you so you don't freak out and kill yourself or do something crazy. But any doctor worth their salt, and I'm sure all of them are, is not going to want to see you on medication anyway. So, talk to somebody if you need to, but there are some proactive things that you can do, and I would get started on it right away. Can you dig it? I hope you can.